Well, welcome everybody to the St. Matthias Employment Ministry's new channel that we're calling Conversations with Career Coaches. And I'm very pleased to say that we're kicking off the series with a good friend of mine and a great coach and mentor, Marty Latman. Marty, thanks for being here to help us get this started.
My pleasure, Terry. My pleasure.
Let me introduce Marty, although I know he's one of those individuals who many people say needs no introduction, but I want to honor and pay homage to Marty being here with us today. Marty is someone who many people call the best networker they know. I would say that myself. When I met Marty some years ago, one of the things that I immediately took away from that meeting was his slogan, always be connecting, which I'm going to ask Marty about during our conversation. Marty has been described as a people helper and a matchmaker. And after spending many years in the corporate world at the C-suite level, Marty started his own firm, Latman Advisory Services, where he helps organizations improve their profitability and achieve their business goals. When he's not doing that type of consulting, Marty is a career coach and a mentor who advises, supports, teaches, and trains career transitioners in the techniques needed to navigate challenging job searches and career transitions. And over the years, I got this number from Marty. He says that over 1,300 professionals have said that through his help, they are now more successful, they're happier, they've landed in the positions that they most desired. And so it is my great pleasure to have this first conversation with a career coach with Marty Latman. Marty, anything you'd like to add to introducing yourself to the group?
Well, thanks, Terry. I mean, after that, I want to make sure I get my head outside the door over here, but that's okay. No, it's really a pleasure to be here with you to start off this series. I know it will be a big success, and I'm sure it will help a lot of job seekers in their desire to find the positions that they really want.
One of the things that you're well known for, as I mentioned, is the slogan, always be connecting. And I've never asked you, what is the background of that slogan? Do you remember where it came from or how it came to you? And is there a story behind it?
Well, to some extent, yeah. When I look at it, going back over my career and people who I've been with over the years, I noticed that generally it's not the smartest person necessarily who lands the position. It's the person who has the relationship with someone. And in doing that, and I have to say, I've worked with some really interesting people in my career. It's a who's. I mean, one of the persons I worked with, he occupied the Oval Office for a little while. And so in doing that, seeing how they really advanced what they were doing, it was a matter of building relationships with people. And it wasn't just, just at this time. It was relationships that they nurtured over time. And as a result of it, they kept on staying in touch with those people and also connecting with new people along the line. And looking at that, even my own career, I looked at it and I said, well, this is what I've been doing. And I just put it down to words one day. So
it's a brilliant little slogan that I've shared with many people. And I think whenever I do, I give a nod to you, Marty, and I try to mention that you're the originator of it.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate it.
So it sounds like you've seen in your own career journey, you've seen the power of networking. But one of the things that I encounter as a coach, I bet you encounter it too, is a lot of our clients are very reluctant to network. There's something holding them back. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe a good starting point would be to try to demystify it. You yourself said to me in a recent conversation, people tend to overcomplicate it. So Marty, I want to throw the ball to you to like what is networking really? Yeah, what is it really? I think you've already touched on it, but let's
look,
demystify it.
Networking is building relations. That's really what it is. It's getting to know people, but more so getting to know people who get to know you. It's a two-way street. I mean, a lot of people say that in networking, what you have to do, you have to know a lot of people. Well, that's only half the equation. If someone who you know doesn't really understand what you do or know what you do, it's very difficult for them to be able to be in a position to help you. What you want to do when you build these relationships is to be in a situation where, let's say one of your, the people in your network hears of a position. I heard that there's an open position for a project manager. Well, you want that person to immediately say, "Oh, Nancy Aronson, she's the one you should be calling."
Mhm.
And by knowing Nancy, what she's done, okay, as a project manager, that's what you want. You want your name to come up in the minds of the people who you have relationships with. So if they hear things, they can immediately, refer people to you, and it becomes an instant recommendation, so to speak, that you are the person who is really qualified to do what this other individual is looking for.
I think in today's job market, many people, I've seen many of my clients do this. They go right to the job boards and they sit all day long on the computer, going from one job board to the next, thinking that that's how they're going to find their next position in today's job market. But you and I both know that is not the way to find the next position. Marty, if you were to lay out the basic ingredients in finding a position in today's job market, what would you say?
Well, look, everyone says that we're in a period of change. When it comes to finding a position, it's different today. Well, yes and no. Really what it comes down to, there are four basic ways to find a position.
Mhm.
It's networking, networking, networking. That's number one.
Okay.
Okay. Number two, you have the use of recruiters.
Mhm.
Okay. Number three, which is now a big emphasis, which a lot of people fall in the trap of, social networking, the
Yeah.
job boards, LinkedIn, etc. And the fourth one, which people really do not take the advantage of, is direct mail, where you could send a letter to someone at a elevated position in the company and ask some questions after you've done your research of that company, and to possibly, talk about yourself real simple, a one-page letter. Now, what you do, ask some questions from what you researched about the company, and ask if they could, meet with you, could possibly help them solve that position, that problem they have. And that also could help, create a position if they don't have it already established. But those are the four main ways. And part of it, you could say you could do some contract work, you could do temporary work, you could do volunteer work. But those four pieces are the main ways to find a position. And that hasn't changed really over the years, except, as I say, social media today has a much higher impact than it did before. Even with social media today, the main way to find a position, as you and I know, Terry, it's networking, networking, networking.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And what happens is that when people sit in front of the boards and, they try to apply online, what they're not seeing is what's happening on the other end.
Mhm.
Okay. You might say, wow, this is a great position. I'm a great match for this. and I'll apply right away. Well, there might be 50 other people who say the same thing. I'm the right person. Let me do it. And as a result of it, people apply. Generally, they go on large companies through the ATS system, which eliminates a lot of people because you're playing the game and you might not have the keywords, uh, the specificity that they set up for the job based upon your resume might not fit you, and you might be eliminated. And at the same time, you could probably do the job.
Yeah.
But if you network in, it's different. Case in point, a friend of mine who's also a career coach, he had a client, and the client came to him and said, you know, I have this position that I've looked at. It's up in Boston. I think I'm a pretty good candidate for it. And it was a lower level type position. And my friend who's the coach looked at it, knew the kid very well, felt that he could do it, and worked with him on his resume. And they submitted it online. Well, within 15 minutes, he was rejected, the candidate. And he came to talk to my friend. How could this happen? I'm a perfect fit, et cetera, et cetera. My friend, the coach, looked at it, looked at where the company was, and said, if you want, let me contact one of my former clients who may have worked at the company. And he did. He spoke to his former client, said, listen, this is the situation with my this young individual. I think he's a perfect fit, but he's been rejected by the system. Do you know who the hiring manager is? He said, oh, yeah. Why don't you send me the resume and I'll see what I could do. So the resume was sent to my friend's former client, who then presented it to the hiring manager in this company, which he was no longer part of. And within, I think it was a day or two, the young candidate got the call. Let's talk. He said, you're perfect for the position. I don't know why, you don't apply.
Mhm.
He said he did apply. And then they went and they investigated, and the ATS system was set at certain types of criteria, which they didn't pick up in the resume. Bottom line, the individual was hired. He's been there and he's been very successful.
That's a
Okay,
great story. Yeah, that's a great story, and I'm aware of very similar stories. And I think that what we're living in this time of pandemic and working from home and virtual this and virtual that. So we're in kind of a funny period of time. But I think what that story and others like it, the lesson it's teaching is, don't make the mistake of just strictly going through online applications. Spend more time. Maybe it's one of those 80-20 things. Spend more time on your network, on reaching out to people, connecting with people, leveraging relationships to gain greater visibility into companies of interest.
Most definitely, Terry. I'm one who totally believes that it's networking. I came across a statistic a few years ago where job leads, 45 to 95% of the job leads in this article I read come from networking. Now, if you look at it, let's say that the statistic wasn't right. Let's say it's even half of what they talked about. Well, you're talking at that point, 20 to 50% of leads come from networking. And what happens, one of the big tipping points in the hiring process comes to likability and recommendations. And if a person likes you and you've been recommended to that individual, you're going to get the position, even though you might not have all the skills that another person may have. But if the hiring people like you, you're going to get the position.
Yep. I was listening to a podcast earlier today by our friend Virginia Franco. I forget who her guest was, but they were talking about warm networking and cold networking. And I hadn't quite heard those terms used that way before, but I think the key thing, and your story illustrates it, is that you can really warm up a networking process by reaching out to people that you know, and then those people reaching out to people that they know.
It's like peeling down back the onion. You know, you start on the outer shell and you work towards the inside. And as you do, you're going to get more and more focused and closer to your position that you want. That's how it always comes.
Let's talk a little bit about this strange time that we're in right now. It feels somewhat transitional. You and I have both heard recently that some groups are starting or planning to start to come back to face-to-face, in-person gatherings, but we're still networking remotely as well. So let's start with networking remotely. What are some of your tips to do that type of networking effectively? And then after that, we'll move on to getting ready for the return of in-person networking.
Well, I think, you know, in the remote networking, it depends, number one, if you're going to do, let's say, a one-on-one or a group meeting. Okay. Things really, if you're doing one-on-one, that really has not changed from, you know, doing a live meeting. You want to do research on the individual. You want to find out, you know, what their background is, what their likes are, what their dislikes are. Okay. You know, and you can find out a lot of that information today. And then what you do, you know, you have these virtual meetings. The only real difference between the virtual meeting and the live meeting today is the technology when you really look at it. And you're not face to face, so to speak, physically, belly to belly, as I'll call it. Right. But really, the other piece is, you know, you're talking to a person, you're generally seeing their facial expressions, which is part of the body language, which would really, you know, the body speaks more than the mouth speaks, as far as I'm concerned. Right. So in doing, you know, the hands, everything, I mean, look at. Virtual meetings, you want to prepare for it as if you were having a live meeting. When you're face to face, it's just a regular conversation. If it's a group, what you want to try to do is use the chat to get to know people and set up other meetings outside the general meeting, so you then could find out further about the individual. One thing, you know, a lot of people in these virtual meetings, when you have these meetings, it's like, you know, put your calling card in the chat. Well, in doing that, what I recommend is that have your, I'll call it your calling card, your elevator pitch, already typed up. Okay. And then all you have to do is copy and paste instead of sitting there and trying to type, and, you know, you get distracted, etc. Okay. But it's really the virtual piece of it. It's somewhat similar to live. It's just that you're not close up. I'm in a situation right now where I don't really make phone calls per se any longer. I'll do video calls.
Same here.
Okay. It then allows you to really get to see what the person's all about, and you get to see some of the facial expressions. At the same time, I do not believe that I'll call it the virtual meetings, truly replace the face-to-face meeting. I think the face-to-face meeting add another dynamic. I'm in one group where I use it in my financial area when I help different companies, and we meet on a regular basis. Well, it's one thing to meet on the screen like this, and we have about 20 people together. When we met physically, it was pretty eye-opening, because if you look at somebody on the screen, you figure, okay, now this person's about, you know, I don't know, 6 foot, one guy was 6'8", another one was 5'7". Okay, you're missing that attribute.
Yes.
But the other part of it, in doing it, it's preparation. It's in virtual, it's lighting. Lighting can make a big difference. It's how you look. I think that on the virtual meetings today, people have become very relaxed at it now. And as a result of it, they are pretty casual on what their appearance are when they have these meetings. What some of these things you could use the virtual to your advantage to help you network. For instance, Nancy over here with her background.
Right.
Okay, Nancy's the background woman. Okay, and people get to know Nancy first of all because of, the background she has, and it's enlightening. It's different. I've
Creative.
seen a lot of different libraries. I'll tell you that from what I could see.
Yeah.
But this is how it goes. I for instance, in my financial one of my groups, where I'm thinking of right now, I'm breaking up my meetings. I'm going to have one live meeting a month and one virtual meeting a month, and we'll see how things progress there. Because I think a lot of people truly miss the face-to-face meetings.
Yes. Well,
And I
let's.
think there's a certain energy by
Oh,
having
yes.
face-to-face meetings.
I totally agree with that. Let's flip over to that. I'll start off by saying I have a client who told me recently, he said, Terry, I'm going to be going to an in-person meeting. I haven't gone to an in-person meeting in quite some time. And I said to him, do you have a business card? And he said, what? A what? So we did a whole session on creating a business card, using Vistaprint, what should you have on there? If you do two-sided, what could you use the backside for? And it was incredibly eye-opening for him. It was a very positive outcome. He came back to me afterwards raving about how wonderful it was that he went to this event and actually had little business cards that he could give to people he was meeting with. And he said to me, I would not have thought of that. And I think it's because we have pandemic forgetfulness. We've forgotten what we used to do. So Marty, let me ask you, what are some of the things you would recommend we all start getting ready for as we anticipate the return of in-person networking?
Well, that's a great question, Terry. When you really look at it, yes, the business card, your personal business card, I think is definitely a necessity. All right. They have certain apps today.
Yeah.
When I think when you go to some of these meetings, some of the people say, well, look, we'll exchange our information through the apps.
Right.
You could accomplish that, but I think that's missing something. The physical card that one would have, okay, you could tell a lot from the card. Number one, I think you should have a quality card which says something about yourself. Okay, the physical card doesn't get lost in the shuffle, so to speak, as it would be if it goes directly to your phone, the information. You can have it on your desk, so you see, it will remind you of the people. But in the physical meetings, the preparation, you want to prepare for it, try to find out who's going to be there, find out who the leader is. You can find out a lot of information once you speak to the leader. The leader could help in introducing you to other people at a physical meeting. Okay, but you could also get a list of the people who will be at the physical meeting. And what I suggest you do is try to get the list of who's going to be there. Do a lot of research on the people who are going to be there. Then target the number of people that you want to really engage with at the meeting. And then what happens is that when you get to the meeting, you could actually, work, talk to them, etc. In doing it, what you want to do is as you prepare for the meeting, you want to know, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? Okay. What do you want to say? Okay. What do you want to, discuss with these individuals who you have now targeted? You also want to know, what's the dress? What's the dress code for the meeting? Okay. Will the meeting be just for people in one type of industry, or will it be multiple industries? That could affect your elevator pitch that you take to the meeting, to be introduced to different people. If you are in a meeting that's, I'll call it industry specific, well, in that one, your elevator pitch could be geared to that industry, in that you could speak the language or the terms that that industry is familiar with, to show your knowledge in the industry. If it's more of a generalized group, well, your elevator pitch will be more generalized. Okay. What I also suggest you do, bring a pad and paper that you could slip in your pocket. Okay. Don't write on the business cards that are handed to you. Okay. If you want to jot down some notes, do it on the pad. Especially, you have to understand, in the exchange of business cards, different cultures treat it differently. Okay. For people who come from, the Pacific Rim nations, so to speak, their presentation of a business card to you is really a ceremony on how they hold it, how they present it to you. It has a lot of meaning in it, a lot of respect. And then if all of a sudden you start writing things on it, that's a pretty big insult to them. So you don't want to do that. So have yourself, as I say, a pen and paper, so you could jot down some things and know, what you want to discuss. What do you want to accomplish? At the same time, keep in mind timing. How long will the meeting be? For the get together. Based upon that, you have to schedule in your own mind how much time you're going to spend with each individual. The whole purpose on these types of meetings is to set up a second meeting. Right. That's what you want to do, where you will have an in-depth conversation with people. All right. But at the same time, you want to say, all right, if I have a 2-hour meeting, let's say, and I want to meet 10 people in the 2-hour meeting, you're not going to spend 12 minutes with each individual person, because there's this transition between people. So you have to keep that in mind. At the same time, what I recommend, if it's a meeting where they're going to have food, okay, eat before you get there. Okay. Eat before you get there. It's very difficult to have a conversation when you have, let's say, hors d'oeuvres in one hand, a drink in another hand, and then you have to try to engage and shake hands with somebody. I don't even know if we're going to be shaking hands any longer because of the pandemic. Right. But even if you have to, hit your elbow or cross legs together, whatever it is, eat before you get there. All right. That's the whole situation. Then you're free to network. In addition, when it comes to these physical meetings, what you want to look at is, I would say, get there early, because if you get there early, you could speak to the leader who could help you on introductions. At the same time, you don't have the stress of getting there late and worrying if you're going to miss something in the meeting. But also, one of the big important things to do is to check out the physical location. Right. Where do you want to position yourself for the meeting? And that is very important, because, a lot of people hang out where the food is, somewhere the bar is. Okay. That's okay to engage with people. But one of the things you might want to do is pick a place where you could observe what's going on. That's what I do, because I'm really interested to, talk to different people but at the same time, be in a position, if I see someone is leaving who I have not engaged with from my position, I could then go talk to that person before they're out the door. Okay. And that's something you want to do based on these physical meetings. So,
It's been so long since we've had these in-person physical meetings that I really appreciate your running down this whole list of things, Marty, because they're all, I'm remembering them all, but I haven't used them all in 2 years, or maybe not quite 2 years. So thank you for that rundown. Let me throw one more on there that I don't think you mentioned, but I'm looking at my image here on the screen and all this scruffy beard that I've grown during the shutdown. I probably ought to shave too.
well, it's up to you. It depends
Okay.
on what the situation is. Okay. But yeah, the physical appearance means a lot.
Yeah.
All right. As you go through this thing. Um, it's planning. Planning is really, really important on these situations. Another thing that I didn't mention, but I want to mention it because I think it's really important.
Mhm.
A couple of, generally, number one, when people go to these networking meetings, they really don't want to go. They really don't want to go. A lot of people go because they say, I have to go. They really don't want to go. So what they're going to do, strengthen numbers. Let me go with a friend of mine.
Mhm.
And then what they do, they go with a friend, and all evening they speak with their friend and really do not really network. Okay. If you were going to a networking event, it's okay to go with someone. But what I suggest you do before you get out of the car and go in, tell your friend, look, we could network between us anytime we want. Okay. We're here to meet other people. Why don't we do this? When we go in, we could start off together, but then let's split up and let's meet together at the end over here at this time. And then this way you are out meeting new people. Okay. And you're not spending the time with some people that you already know. And it's one thing to reinforce your relationship, which is good. But at the same time, you want to reach out and meet new people.
That's a great point, Marty, because I think a lot of us are creatures of habit. We stick with the people we know. We're also creatures of comforts. We stay in our comfort zone. So what you're suggesting is get a little bit out of that comfort zone.
Very much so. Now, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Okay. At first, you're uncomfortable, but the more you do it, as I say, the more comfortable you will be. At the same time, just a little hint, two things. Number one, don't sit down alone.
Mhm.
If you sit down alone, you'll be alone probably all night. Okay. That's not going to help you network. And at the same time, look for the people, I'll call it the wallflowers, the people who are on the side, who are not engaging with people, and go over and bring them into the conversation.
Great.
You'll create a real good friendship and you'll build a relationship with that person. At the same time, you will help that person get over their anxiety about coming to these type of meetings. And so it's a win-win situation.
That's a great point. And I think one of the things that I've learned from you, Marty, over the years with regard to networking is to try to get beyond yourself and try to connect with that other person. Maybe it is that shy person who's over there by themselves, or maybe it's somebody sitting at a table where no one else is sitting with them. Connect, right? Just connect.
Connect.
And
It's never about you. It's never about you. It's always about the other person. I mean, I went to a quick little story. I went to a meeting once for a group. There were 125 people there. And I was there and I was networking. And over in the far corner, I saw this one individual just standing by himself. And I went over to speak with him, and I got to talk to him. And I said, well, why don't you come join the group? He said, "Oh, I don't know, I'm very uncomfortable." And I said, well, what's your situation? Well, I've been out of work for 2 years already. And I said, really? I said, what do you do? He says, well, I deal in precious metals. And really up here, people do not do that anymore. I said, what have you been doing? And I've been trying to network, meet different people. So we got to chat for a couple minutes. I said to him, come join us. I'll introduce you to a few people. Here's my card. Send me your resume. I'll see what I could do to help you. But meanwhile, come join the party. And so he came in, I introduced him to a few other people, and he spent the rest of the night meeting other people. Okay. He sent me his resume that night. The next day, I received a call from a friend of mine who's a recruiter. Unfortunately, he passed away a number of years back, but he called me and says, Marty, I know you're pretty helpful in finding people for me, but this is going to be unusual. I'm looking for someone with background in precious metals. I said, really? I said, Mike, here, I'll send you his resume. Call Jim. He's in precious metals. I met him the other day. You might be able to help. And I sent off Jim's resume. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Jim. Thank you very much, Marty. I'm down here in Miami. Mike got my resume from you. I interviewed with the company and they hired me. And I'm now moving from New Jersey down in Miami. I'm going to be here. And he's been there ever since. So you never know what's going to happen.
Wonderful story. Nancy typed into the chat the word kismet.
That's right.
Right. What is Nancy? Unmute yourself. What's kismet again? It's like that magical coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, what are the odds that would happen?
Right. What are the odds? Right. And it's interesting you should say that, Marty. Back to you. Wouldn't you say that networking improves your odds?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah. I had one individual. He called me up. We were networking. And he told me, he's looking for a position, a controller position. And we got to chatting a bit. And he said, listen, I'm looking at this one company. They're calling me in. And it's a family-owned business. And I really cannot find out any information about it. And I said, really? I said, well, what type of company it was? And he told me. And I said, what's the name of it? And he told me, and I had to chuckle. And he said, what's so funny? I said, well, that's my brother-in-law's company. I said, really? I said, yeah. And I knew the individual, who's a good controller, et cetera. He says, could you tell me about my brother-in-law? Your brother-in-law. And I told him, what they're looking for, what's needed. He thanked me very much. I then got off the phone. I called my brother-in-law. And I said, listen, I hear you're interviewing it for a controller. This is the person you could take a look at. He's coming in to see you. This is his strengths. These are his weaknesses, but he's a good guy. And he ended up getting hired. So you never know.
Nice. Let me invite the folks that have joined us here today, Marty, if they have a comment or a networking tip they'd like to add, you could put it in the chat if you like, folks, or just unmute and join the conversation. What would you like to add to what Marty has already shared with us about networking? Mike Fleischman has raised his hand. Mike, go ahead.
No, I'll let Nancy go first.
Just, really quick, put a QR code on your business card. A lot of people just take pictures of business cards now, but if you put a QR code on, you can have it send them right to your LinkedIn profile, and you could connect very easily that way.
Fantastic. I'm gonna have to learn how to do that.
I can help you. It's very easy.
Thank you, Nancy. You have something. There's an app that will do that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
There are multiple websites. Yeah, I'll post my favorite.
Why don't you put something in the chat?
Yeah, I'll post my favorite one in the chat.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, Nancy. Mike, how about you? You had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so this is a very timely topic. So thank you, Marty. I'm actually going in person, meeting with a few people at a restaurant later this week. So it's very, informal, nothing, it's a group of people who are in human resources, which is my line of work. But I thought it was interesting, Marty, when you said we should eat before the event. And I just was a little more curious about why do you think that? Because then if I gotta eat if everybody else is eating.
Well, look, if you're going to, let's say a luncheon.
No, this is dinner. This is going to be a dinner. At a
A
restaurant.
dinner meeting, and how many people are going to be there?
5 people, myself.
Well, that's a different scenario than going to a regular big networking event. So if you have 5 people, what I would do is that I'll do the research on the 5 people that you are meeting with. Okay, know what's going to happen, and in that one, I would probably take a bit of a snack before I got there, but then I would eat some part of the meal, okay, to join them. This one you're at a sit down type dinner, basically what you're saying. Is that right?
Right.
Okay, well, that's somewhat different than the other type of meetings that I was referring to.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Enjoy that dinner, Mike, and enjoy the opportunity to yes, and good luck.
Thanks.
Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, I had a comment and then a question. When you guys were talking about Marty, if you go there with a colleague or a friend to a networking event, it just kind of popped into my head that it seems like it would be a good strategy to sort of divide the room, divide and conquer, and meet a few people, and then you can kind of flip it on its head and then introduce each other to the people that you've met. I think would be a good way to go.
That's a good strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
And
but
my
the idea is to meet other people. That's the whole situation.
Right. And my question, not to derail where you're going, but you're talking about once you're at a networking event, sort of how to engage. Do you have any tips on how to select these networking events?
Very good question.
That's a good one.
That's a real good one. Well, you try to figure out, number one, on the networking event, who's the sponsor? What's the makeup of the people that are going to be there? And that's a good clue as to what it's going to be about. Okay. And then from there, then you can make your choice. But look, it's like going to any type of networking group. You can network 7 days a week. All right. There's so many networking groups out there. You could do 7 days a week. You could go to network. Okay. But at the same time, you want to sit back and choose the ones where you feel that you will have the best opportunity to meet the people that you need to meet. Okay. And in doing that, it's based upon what the sponsorship is. And you ask the person who's in charge, what's going to be the makeup of the group. Okay. And that could give you an idea about what you're looking at. That's how I would approach it.
Marty, is your new My Networking Central going to help Mike and others with that question? Are they going to be able to look up groups on?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I appreciate you mentioning that, Terry. My Networking Central is now live. It's a platform that myself and 4 other people have put together, including one is Nancy over here, who's helped. She's a quiet one. But what it's going to do, it will help job seekers. It will help networking groups, and it will also help speakers. So in one location where you could go and say, all right, I want to find a networking group that specializes in marketing that meets on the first or the second Tuesday of the month. And it will give you information about that group. Okay. At the same time, it will indicate their meetings and who the speakers are at their meetings. And the speakers then at the same time, we will have profiles of different speakers. So you will understand what the speaker his main emphasis is about. And at the same time, you could see at what networking meetings this speaker is speaking. So especially if this is your first time going in, it's a matter of finding out what networking groups are available to you, what they do, when they meet, okay? If there's any requirements on membership, where are they located, okay? Who's going to be speaking there? When will they meet? In the next phase, we will be able to tell you then next phase, okay, I want to find out networking groups within 15 miles of my house. And we'll be able to do that. And
That's
so,
fantastic.
you know, if you haven't, if you want to know more information on that, it's mynetworkingcentral.com. You could look it up. We will have some further training on it for users the week after Thanksgiving.
It's a great thing that you and Nancy and the others are building, Marty. I'm very happy when I heard about that. I've already put my data into it. So Mike or others, if you go check it out, you'll find me listed on Marty's
You
site.
are there. You are there.
I think it's a great thing to pull all of this networking stuff into a central place where you can find out just what Marty said, what groups, what speakers, what dates, what times, etc. So it's a wonderful thing. Marty, we're getting close to the end of our time. Let me ask you the question I saved for the end. And that is, we're coming into the holidays. And I'm wondering if you have a couple of tips for
My favorite
networking,
time of year. Okay.
networking during the holidays.
Networking during the holidays. You know, the myth out there has been, you know, you don't network during the holidays because nobody's available to you, which is a big myth. This is the best time to network. This is the easiest time to network. And there's a number of things to consider, okay, in looking at it. First, from a company standpoint, companies want to hire people between now and the new year. Why? Because they want, when they have a year end, that's a December year end, they want to start off their new year, January, with the staff that they need to be able to execute the budgets that they have. Budgets should be in place already, so they know what their hiring requirements are. At the same time, it enables them to get people on board now so they could get training and get familiar with how the organization is run and what their expectations are. Okay. At the same time, right now, people are around, the executive, the hiring people are around. I mean, we went through COVID and, you know, everybody, you know, people wanted to get away right now. Okay. But at the same time, the people who are generally not there are the people who have situations where their vacation time is generally use it or lose it. So they take a lot of vacation at the end of the year. So if they take the vacation, the executives or the hiring managers are left there to maintain the ship, so to speak, and they're looking to hire and they have the time to hire. Business somewhat slows up during year end. Okay. So it's a win-win situation. The gatekeepers aren't there. It's generally a happy time of year. People are generally in a positive mood at the moment. Okay. And so as a result of it, and especially in today's market, when you hear about the labor market, that people have a hard time hiring. This year going into the holidays, there's a lot of companies are hiring now. They're trying to hire. So interviews are happening right now. You have great access to people to invite you in or to have these virtual, meetings. Holiday networking is really, really a great time to get together with people.
Marty,
You could,
Ass-
you're quite
assuming,
welcome,
assuming
Terry.
Marty, that, and based on what Marty's saying, assuming that people are looking for work and they're out there, if you don't look, then your competition is.
yes,
And there's no guarantee that the competition is going to get the job, but you're not, because you're not looking.
that's right.
Your
taking
your
yourself
odds
out.
increase a lot, as you say, Joey, because other people believe the myth. Now's not a good time to network, so they're not. You put, the pedal to the metal, this is the time to really get out there and, find that position that you're looking for.
Yeah.
So,
Great
Terry.
answer, Marty. And Joey,
Great.
thank you for chiming in. Marty, before we do end, a question came into the chat from Anne Marie. And it says, how soon should you follow up with a contact you networked with during an event? And what's the best method of contact? So how soon and method?
Well, I believe my situation, the 3-day rule.
Ah,
Okay. I believe in that. If I don't connect with somebody who I've met within 3 days, obviously the impression was not made.
mhm.
And I don't think there's going to be a lot of promise in it. I do it within 3 days. Now, how you do it, it depends upon the circumstances. One thing that a lot of people, in my mind, do not do, they do not ask other people, how do you like to communicate?
Mm.
And this is where I make it where we overcomplicate things in networking.
Yeah.
Ask somebody,
Yeah.
okay, how do you like to communicate? Email, telephone, okay,
Yeah.
text, what's your preference?
Mhm.
And then based upon that, then you do it, okay?
Excellent.
It's all in the setup initially, but if you haven't set it up, okay, and you have a person's telephone number, what I would do is first send them a note. I said, listen, I'd like to connect with you. Are you up for a video call? Let's have something, are you available this date?
Yeah.
You set the date. You be in the driver's seat, so to speak. You lead it. And don't, be in a situation, well, I'd like to, talk with you. What's your availability next week? Okay, you could always say, listen, let's have a meeting on this date. If this is not, fits your schedule, could you suggest another day? That's how I would approach it. Hopefully
Marty,
I've
this is-
answered your question, Anne Marie.
I think you did. And let me say, this has been great, Marty. I thank you so much. Let me ask you, Marty, do you know off the top of your head when your next speaking engagement is, in case anybody wants to catch your next appearance?
Actually, I'm speaking tomorrow evening in Charleston, South Carolina. That's
Uh-huh.
when I have that, and I have a Fort Lauderdale later on this week. In December, I think it's the second Wednesday in December, I will be speaking at PSG of Morris.
Mhm. Very good.
Okay. So, if anyone wants to contact me, it's really easy. Send me an email, martylatman@gmail.com, all one word. You could link with me. I'm open, for invitations on LinkedIn. Just, Marty Latman. That's how you'll find me. You could also check my website, www.latmanadvisoryservices.com.
Fantastic. Marty, you are definitely Mr. Networking. And on behalf of the St. Matthias Employment Ministry, thank you so much for being with us today. Our guest next month will be Alex Freund, and the topic is interviewing. So make a note of it, folks. I hope to see you in December. And Marty, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. Happy holidays to everybody. Enjoy. Go out and network.